There's a pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Hello, BookTube. I'm Shawn the Book Maniac. Welcome back to my channel and another episode of Zooming In, which is a series in which I engage with bookish social media luminaries the world over to talk about bookish literary articles online. And I'm delighted to welcome back Nyambura for their third appearance on this series and maybe 103rd appearance on my channel, joining us from Nairobi. Hello, Nyambura.
Hi, Shawn. Thanks for having me.
Nyambura has their finger in so many bookish literary social media pies, which is fabulous. Another fabulous thing is they use the same name for everything. 100 on Books. They're on BookTube. They have a podcast. They have a newsletter and many other things, too numerous to mention, but all of which will be listed in the show notes. And we are here to talk about an article from early November in Esquire called Why I Love Paperbacks by Isaac Fitzgerald. Nyambura, what did you make of this article?
How do I say this? I'm going to sound like a person from the global south, which I am, but he talks about how paperbacks are affordable and that makes for an ease with which to move through the world with them, give them away, and so on. But where I'm from, books are not affordable. They're generally quite expensive things to acquire. I mean, like, even a secondhand book is going to go for $2, $3, which is a lot of money in this part of the world for one person to spend on one item. And so I thought to myself, this is a very Western piece to read. Like, he's coming from a very Western perspective. And I don't think it's anybody's job to present every perspective to be like, and now let me account for people in the global south. Let me account for people who make $2 or less a day or something like that. But yeah, I mean, I thought about all the taxes that are slapped on books before they arrive at a bookstore in this country. And I was like, haha, no way. I'm walking around leaving books around for total strangers.
Strangers.
Yeah.
That is, in fact, at least subconsciously, why I wanted to discuss this article with you. So great. I also didn't really get the difference in price. I don't see a big difference in price. I mean, sure, there's a maybe again. Well, this is pretty elitist and from the global. What would I be? The global north. That paperbacks, are about between $8 and $10 cheaper, but they're expensive too. Maybe that's not the part of the article that I connected with the most. Was there anything useful or interesting in this article for you? And if your answer is no, then we'll just have a really bitchy conversation about this article. But did you get anything out of it at all?
I think it was great to read a writer talking about books without any preciousness. He's not precious about books. He has a very right. I don't want to say utilitarian attitude. That's not the word I'm looking for. But he's not precious about books. And I think it's so important for us to move beyond book as art, book as precious object, etc., to just be like, this is a means of conveying some ideas or some stories and so on. And I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the lack of preciousness with which he talks about books.
Yes, absolutely. I am much more precious than he is, but I enjoyed that part of it. I mean, basically, I would say that the central ideas of this piece, it's not as organized or coherent as it could be, but it's that paperbacks are great because they're cheap, because you don't have to worry about treating them very well, like you do with the precious hardcover, and you don't need to keep them. You should just pass them on to loved ones or strangers. And I don't relate really to any of that because I treat my books like here's a paperback book that I've read. It looks like a brand new book. You could put it back on the bookshelf in the bookstore and they wouldn't know. Like I treat my books very, very well. Oh, I'm just you have to be a princess, Nyambura. And I'm wearing my princess blouse. But yeah, I've always treated my books like they were gold. And when I buy used books, they have to be in really excellent condition unless they're hard to find, and then I'll accept something that's a little banged up. But usually, no, I would only buy a used book if it looked like a new book. I don't give my books away unless they're my bales. And in fact, I don't give those away. I trade them in at the used bookstore for books that I might like better.
Mhm.
I keep the books I hate the most because I keep referring to them in future videos ad infinitum. So I've got a special shelf of books I hated deeply that I don't part with. So how about you? Do you have a lot of paperbacks? What's your relationship to paperbacks as opposed to hardbacks or audiobooks or ebooks?
I most of the books I buy are paperbacks because one, we don't get a lot of hardbacks here, like even in brand new bookstores, because books are quite expensive, as I said. So if a hardback is going to be supremely expensive, I mean, if a paperback is expensive, how much more a hardback? So we don't get a lot of those to begin with. So even if you're buying a new book, you're probably going to be buying a paperback if you're buying it from a Nairobi bookstore. That's one thing. The other thing is that I buy a lot of secondhand books on the streets, and I have, unlike you, I have no consideration for their age. As long as the binding is intact, I'll buy it. And anybody who's watched a book haul on my channel will know that because they come in all sorts of conditions. Like as long as I could read the cover and the spine is intact, it's fine. But do I give away books? I don't think I do. No, I don't. I barely lend books. But sometimes, like with ARCs, for instance, when a publisher sends me an ARC and I don't particularly want to hold on to it, then that I'll pass on to somebody else. But generally, if a book comes into my library, it's coming in to stay. Yeah.
There was things in here about paperbacks that just made me cringe. Like he said,
Mhm.
paperbacks are light and foldable. Foldable. Who would fold a book? Like to fold it up and put it in your back pocket or something.
I mean, I'll say this, as a teenager, I used to wear cargo pants. I don't know if you call them that in
Yeah.
Canada too. And I used to love cargo pants for that reason, to put paperbacks into the pockets as I walked and went about my business. So they were pretty banged up by the time I was done. I mean, I will say this, if you see the state of a book when I'm done with it, Shawn, you will it's not a book you
I'll
will
have a
want to keep yourself.
I'll have a conniption. I'll have a conniption.
Yep.
Let's look at the last paragraph. So if you see me at the bar finishing a book or closing the cover by a river somewhere, or perhaps on a rocky beach on the Atlantic, ask me if I'm finished, and paperback or not, I'll almost certainly hand it to you. I don't want to carry it home. I'll quote my father without even realizing it. Here, have you read this? I think you might like it. Is there any part of that that you can relate to?
I would, I've started conversations in bars and in restaurants and in buses and so on with people who are reading books which I've enjoyed or which I'm interested in and so on, but I'm not going to give you a book. And I would be surprised if a person gave me a book. However, I remember in my 20s, I say this like I'm 50, but in my 20s, I used to be part of a group of people who would swap books, a book swap thing, and you were encouraged to then give away the book once you were done. So those I gave away because that was the intention of the group, that the books would move beyond the group and so on. But no, like that's not happening. Like God bless him, but I'm not about to do that myself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, for me, my collection of books is important, and it's almost a separate thing from my reading life because I collect a lot of books I never read or will never read.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's a there's a space issue. Eventually, I'm going to max out, or my husband will divorce me over how much space the books are taking up. But
No.
I have heard of people that, for their favorite books, they buy up as many used copies as they see in the used bookstores, especially at an affordable price. And then they
Mm-hmm.
just have them on hand. So then they hand those out as gifts, not necessarily for a birthday gift or a Christmas present, but just as somebody's leaving their house. Oh, I love this book. Here's a copy. Take it home. I don't want it back. And I love that idea. I have never done it, but that's would be more something I'd be likely to do than give my own precious copy away.
Yeah, I like that idea. It's something I'd probably, if I lived in a different part of the world where also it would be not that difficult to find used copies and so on. It's probably something I will do. Because with people who are close to me, I lend books to people who are very close to me, who I know will take care of the book and so on. But there's so many conditions, as you can tell, before they get to the point where they can be lent a book, and that I'm certain that it's going to come back and so on. So, but I like that idea of having some copies at hand that you can hand out. Sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's more up my alley than really anything in this article. I don't like paperbacks. I mean, if I have a choice, it's not that I don't like them. The pocketbooks, the small paperbacks, I don't like, and I have maybe less than 10 in my whole library. I've got lots of these, which are called, what are these called? Trade
Trade
paperbacks?
paperbacks.
Trade paperbacks, and I don't mind them, but if for new releases, I always want the hardcover. Absolutely. And I don't have an issue with some people complain about hardcovers. They're physically, they're more heavier or they're more difficult to read. I read my hardcovers with the dust jacket on, and they look brand new when I'm finished. And some readers of hardback books always take the dust jacket off so it doesn't get damaged. Well, I can't damage anything when I'm reading. I'm a princess reader.
How do you do it? Like, please let the people know how you do it. Do you have a ritual around reading? Do you have a special corner with some reading gloves or something? Like, how are you doing it? What are the rest of us not doing?
You can just call me Dainty Della. dainty reader.
Were you always like this, even as a child?
I think so. I mean, and in so many other areas of my life, I'm a slob. I don't keep a clean house. My kitchen is always scary. My fridge, don't listen to me talk about my fridge, but my books, pristine. So, well, there you go. You don't have access to many hard books in Nairobi, and there's so much.
If I did, I'd say hardback. I love how they sit and how how their spines stay together.
Absolutely.
I don't know how to explain it. However, I will say this, I'm not crazy about dust jackets. I like hardbacks where the book is the book. Like there's no dust jacket to go with the book. Does that make sense?
Yes, but I want to clarify. So some, not very many, but some modern hardbacks, they have the cover design right on the board, not on a dust jacket. Is that what you mean?
Yes. Yeah, that's what I mean.
Because I hate having a hardback book where the dust jacket is missing, because then it's just so boring. It's just the title and author, and it's just boring. But beautiful. There's lots of examples of beautiful hardback books where all of that cover design and stuff is still there, but there's no dust jacket, and I love that too. Can you show us a paperback book you've recently brought into the house?
Oh, okay. It's a set of paperbacks, actually. I don't know if you can see. It's a
Frog and Toad,
a complete reading collection. It's intended for children. And so there's 4 of them in the box. And this is one of them. It has like that glossy cover that children's books usually have, and lots of pictures. I actually have another edition of this. So this might be one of those ones where I have a used copy that I can give, say, a child who comes visiting or a friend who comes visiting, because I don't know if it's the same for your people in your generation, but millennials really love Frog and Toad a lot. Good friends, and they take care of each other and so on. I'll send you a link to an article where it's about how millennials and that Frog and Toad friendship.
Wonderful. This is not the most recent, but this is one that you will be interested to hear about, and that I'm happy to shout out once again. It is a South African novel, and I'm friends with the author. It's called The Broken River Tent by Mphuthumi Ntabeni. It's his first novel, and it's just a couple of years ago was published in Canada. So, Impush, as he's known to his friends, I interviewed him along with Bob the Booker about his second novel, which is called The Wanderers. And now Bob and I are going to be reading this and interviewing Impush about it. So The Broken River Tent by Mphuthumi Ntabeni. So Well, Nyambura, always lovely to chat with you. I'm looking forward to our next chat already.
Me too. And this is always such good fun. You're such a great interviewer.
Well, I'm not sure that I'm doing anything other than just sparkling in your radiant glow, Nyambura.
Thank you.
Thank you.